You ever found yourself worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow, worrying about how your job is going to play out a week from now? I've been thinking a lot about worry last couple of days, just because, I think worry is something that everybody deals with, to varying different degrees. Maybe worrying that traffic is going to be really, really tight as you're going to need to get to work today, or worrying that your boss is going to give you some project that you don't have time to fit into your schedule, worrying that your bills aren't going to be able to be paid on time, worrying. It seems like our lives are filled with worry, filled with lots of opportunities to be anxious about stuff. And I don't know, it's been on my mind a lot, and I think I've come up with a couple things that will help you, because they're starting to help me a lot as I'm processing through them. So the way this plays out in my life a lot is, I manage volunteer schedules for my job at church, and I do a lot of putting together creative projects, foreseeing kind of what we're going to be needing on the weekend for my pastor to use for props and things like that. So the kind of worries that go through my head are like, okay, we built this prop for my pastor. This is something that specifically happened in the weekend. We had to build this, it was like a fake, well, not a fake scale. It was like a scale that would go up and down, and then our pastor could put things in it, and it would go boom, boom, boom. But we had to look like an old-timey scale, but we didn't want to buy one, so we built one out of wood or whatever, and I actually put this thing together, and I'm not an engineer by any stretch. So one of the worries that was going through my head that week was is this thing just going to fall apart during a service? The pastor's going to be using it to talk, and he's going to use it as an object lesson, and then all of a sudden it's just going to just completely fall apart, and he's going to be like, there goes my whole talk, because it's kind of based on this visual, and then he would have to just kind of, well, you guys can imagine what it would be like, right? That'd be terrible. And so as I'm building this thing, I'm worrying about the structural integrity of this thing, or schedules. I don't know if you have to manage schedules for what you do for your job, but I mean, just schedules in general can be a worrying thing. But when you're managing a lot of other people's schedules, they're kind of up in the air, right? There's no guarantee that somebody who said they're going to be able to do something is going to be able to do that in, 3 weeks, right? A guitarist might have a family emergency that they can't be there, and you're going to need to lean on them, because I can't shred guitar. I wish I could play shred guitar, but I can't. So these lead guitarists, I need him to actually be able to follow through on what he promised he was going to do. And so what would spin around in my head, and still does a lot, honestly, a lot of the time, is what happens if they can't be there? What happens if they're late for some reason? What happens if they forget to learn their part? All this different stuff goes through my head. And over time, obviously, you learn to be able to trust people more, and that's good, because we can actually a lot of times just keep people at too far of an arm's length, and we never actually let them succeed because we're too afraid that they're going to fail. But on the other side, worrying about it all the time is super unhealthy, right? Jesus says, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow has enough worries of its own. So here are my thoughts about worry. First of all, worry is just an unhelpful version of fear, okay? Fear can be helpful, right? Think about it. If there's a poisonous spider 5 feet away from you, fear tells you, let's steer clear of this spider, or let's squish it. Either way, let's get this variable, this deadly spider variable, out of our life. For most people. Maybe you're a spider venom person, and then you've conquered that fear because you know that you need to be able to conquer that fear to help people who are going to get bitten by a spider to have an antidote or whatever, right? So fear tells us to steer clear of that spider. Or another good example is if we're swimming in deep water, right, and you start to get tired, and all of a sudden your brain goes I'm drowning, I'm going to drown, I'm going to die. Fear helps us in that situation because it gives us a shot of adrenaline and the ability to be able to swim to safety, whether it's dry land or a boat or whatever. It gives you the ability to have almost superhuman strength in that moment where you were tired before, and now you actually have the energy to take it on. Or another example, if there's a clown nearby, fear tells you, punch that clown in the face, okay? Clowns are scary and they probably should just get punched in the face. It's a fight or flight response, right? Fear tells us fight or flight. But worry, on the other hand, is fear without the fight or flight response. Think about it for a second. You're afraid that something bad is going to happen, but for some reason in our minds, it's detached itself from the action of fight or flight. And so then we just sit in the worry. We sit in that fear without ever being able to take care of it or like to get rid of it, right? So the first thing that's helped me a lot is when I start finding myself in a cycle of worry, remembering, no, this is just a fear response. So fight or flight. Like I have to actually think about it and say like fight or flight. Is this something that I can just completely avoid? Or is this something that's unavoidable, like a job responsibility? I can't avoid needing to fill the schedule. That's what I do. That's what I have committed to do as part of my job, is to make sure that the schedule is going to be filled with great volunteers who love what they do and who are excellent at what they do. So I can't just like flight from that, right? That's a fight response. And so what am I going to do about that? That's maybe a good idea for me to like call and check in with the person. You know, the worry is telling me that I haven't done a good enough job of confirming that spot yet. So if I'm worried about something, I need to address it and confirm with that musician, be like, hey, just making sure you're still good to go for a couple weeks from now. How you feeling about the guitar parts? You know, here's the reminder of the call times. Like, and then all of a sudden that worry goes away, right? Because I've confirmed that with the person. Or another good example with the prop, right? If I wouldn't have been so focused on being worried about the structural integrity of the thing, but just focused on making it structurally sound, maybe asking somebody, you know, for help who knows this kind of stuff, take a look at it. Does this look like this is going to hold up? You know, and they'd have been like, oh yeah, maybe try this. And then, you know, then I would have felt a lot better about it. But instead I just sat in the worry of the moment and just kind of like twiddled my thumbs and said, oh no. Like what help? That doesn't help at all, right? And so that's the first thing, is that worry is just unhelpful fear. Like it doesn't give us an action to be able to do anything with. Secondarily, worry takes us away from our focus on today. Worry about tomorrow subtracts from our focus for today. Because we just sit there twiddling our thumbs and just sitting in the worry. It takes mental energy, it takes emotional energy, it wears you out to worry, but there's no good effect from it. It's like just dumping time down the drain when you worry, because you could have been spending that time focusing on today, which you actually have some control over, to address some of the stuff that you're worrying about. But instead we just sit in that worry, right? So don't let worry subtract from today. Just focus on today, trust God for the rest, and see what happens. You know, Jesus said that don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow has enough worries of its own. But instead, seek first God's kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Or in other words, keep your eyes focused on Christ. Keep your eyes focused on his calling for you. Keep your eyes focused on his promises, that like he's never going to leave you or forsake you, that he's always with you, that he's holding you up with his right hand. Like he's there for us. And if we keep our eyes on that, it's going to put everything else into perspective. Like we don't need to worry about tomorrow when we remember that Jesus is with us today. And then lastly, worry is faith. It's faith that something bad is going to happen. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. Like we don't know. That's kind of the whole reason worry sets in, right? Is because it's an unknown. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. We don't know if tomorrow we're going to wake up and we're going to get a devastating phone call from a family member. We don't know if tomorrow we're going to wake up and we're going to have a terrible flu and we're not going to be able to go into work. We don't know if we're going to wake up tomorrow and our kid is going to have a terrible flu and be throwing up all over our bed. Like these are things that you could choose to worry about because they could totally happen, right? But a lot of times we don't worry about those sorts of things. But tomorrow we don't know what's going to happen at all. And so we can choose to have faith that something bad will happen, or faith in God, who promises to be a good heavenly Father who's going to take care of us, who cares about his kingdom advancing. And so we can choose to have faith in something bad or faith in something good. I think the option, the choice is pretty obvious what would be a wiser, more beneficial way to have faith. because if faith can move mountains, it makes me a little worried that faith could probably also build barriers. Like if you've built up this faith in something awful that's going to happen, at the very least, that's going to build a barrier in your life that's going to be hard to push through because you're worried that on the other side of pushing, all there's going to be is misery. Where on the other hand, if you are having faith that God is working for you, that God is going before you, and that He's helping you along the way, that, man, that's empowering. I want to advance. I want to succeed. I want to push. I want to run the race with endurance like Paul talks about in Scripture. I want to actually do what God has called me to do without being hindered by this faith in something bad happening. So anyway, those are my thoughts about worry. I hope it's helpful for you. I know that these are really helpful for me. Just even talking with you guys today is going to help me to worry less today. So I'm really excited about where this is going. And man, if you guys have thoughts or ideas about worry and how to address that stuff, I'd love to hear from you. Go ahead and leave some of that in the comments below. As always, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Peace.